Our guest is Jamie Bossy. Jamie is a financial professional, but also an author of children's books and an adult book, I guess, as well.
Yeah, we'll show all the pieces and parts of what she has to offer. And don't you love that last name, Bossy? I wish that was my last name. That'd be so cool. So thank goodness she wrote these books to help children learn more about money.
Yes, they're geared for kids, kindergarten to second grade, which is great, nice and young, which is definitely when we want to start that financial education.
Yeah, and most adorably is the lead is a dog named Milton. And when we talked to her, it was her own dog. So pictures of her own little dog Milton that she used to bring around with her when she talked about her books. So cute.
So we'll get into all of that. So let's get started. Welcome, Jamie. Thank you for coming on to the podcast to talk about your books and kind of your story and helping children with financial literacy. Before we dive into all the fun, can you take a couple minutes to introduce who you are and what you do?
Sure. Thanks so much for having me on today, guys. I'm thrilled to be here. I have been a financial planner for 20 years now, and then been writing books for probably the last 6 years on helping to spread financial literacy for kids and help parents and teachers talk about money with kids, and then also get their own finances in order with a grown up book called Money Boss Mom, helping young parents be the boss of their financial future.
Awesome. And where are you located, Jamie?
I'm in Manhattan, Kansas.
Manhattan, Kansas. How fun.
Yeah,
I have
the
a
Little
Kansas
Apple. Have you
friend.
ever been there?
I haven't, but I need to get there. I'm not, I am in Missouri, so I should get there.
Nice.
But diving in today, I know you sent this over in an email this morning, and I'm excited to get into this. I love everyone's kind of impetus to get into the, financial industry. And yours is when your parents went bankrupt when you were in college. And I know I kind of said this to you, but I think when parents go bankrupt when you're little, you don't quite understand what's going on. But in college, you have a much better understanding. So tell us a little bit more about this and how it really kind of affected you.
Yeah, so I was a sophomore in college when I got the phone call that my parents were filing for bankruptcy. And that just set off a bunch of questions and alarm bells in my mind. I was like, okay, what does that mean? Are you going to jail? Do I have to move home to raise my siblings? Like, what on earth happened, And so I started doing kind of research on bankruptcy and how they ended up in this place. And, I'd like to say it was something like a medical condition or a business deal gone south or something big that happened that caused it, but it was really just they got in trouble with credit cards and they just couldn't get out. So, so for me at that time in life, I'm a sophomore in college. I actually had three credit cards that I didn't really know how to use, and I was majoring in early education, early childhood education. And then I decided at that point, I was like, well, clearly I haven't gotten a good education around money. So I ended up taking a personal finance class just for me, just to learn more about what I didn't know. So I took one class my sophomore year, and then I really enjoyed it. I thought it was fascinating. I took another one the next year. And then once I got into it, I thought, well, what a cool profession to help people navigate this world of money that is so complicated and so emotional, and there's so many pitfalls, and helping them have the confidence that they're making the right decisions and doing the right things, and helping them avoid a lot of risks like bankruptcy and other things. So
Wow, can I dive into that a little bit?
absolutely.
So, when you were growing up in your household, did you have any idea around how they were spending or managing their money or anything like that? Or was this kind of a shock out of left field when you got the phone call?
Great question. When I was a kid, I felt like the messages around money were always like, there's never enough, right? We
Hmm.
can't afford that. We don't have that. Like one big thing I remember is I really wanted Doc Marten shoes. Like everybody had them, and my parents were just like, no, we can't afford those. Like those are like $100 shoes.
Yeah.
And then and they talked about kind of the wealthy area of town was the Hill, and it was like a foreign land or something when they talked about
Mm.
it. It was like that's where all the money is in town. They're hogging it all. We don't get any. So it kind of like I just remember feeling like, well, money is like some people have it, some people don't, and we don't. So
Mm.
there's nothing we can do about it. Which is really interesting because I feel like the more I've learned about money and personal finance along the way is that a lot of the way we behave around money is behavioral, and a lot of
Mhm.
it stems from things we learned in childhood or
Yeah.
observed in childhood
Yeah.
that we didn't really consciously decide, you know?
Right. It's kind of the behaviors and the nuances that are woven into our fabric around money. And it sounds like scarcity was a big message.
hmm
So it's interesting. You're in college, you get this phone call, and then you start learning about money. Were you able to assist your parents once they filed for bankruptcy and get back on a better foot, or how did that impact it, if at all?
Yeah, so they were very kind of traditional, like boomer style, didn't want to talk about money with me, especially not with me, right? Like
Right.
I don't think
That's
they really talked about it together.
Did they call you and tell you?
They called me to tell me that was happening. Yes.
Okay, I'm sure that was a nerve-wracking conversation for them.
100%. Yeah. I mean, I
Yeah.
think it's, full of shame and embarrassment and um I think they just thought they needed to tell me because I wasn't there, so I didn't know
Hmm.
what was going on day to day. Um, but I was glad that they shared it with me. And on the flip side, I don't think they didn't reach out to me for help, but they I don't know, they wanted me to be aware. So
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And so, yeah, that sounds like it's a exact kind of, emphasis of then how you went straight to the financial industry and kind of turned from um, childhood education.
hmm
But I can see then why you would also want to then help children, and have them learn about their finances, and kind of change that narrative. And so it's funny when you mentioned that you're going to go into childhood education, you just see the lines, kind of the dots connect of like your passions stay the same. It's just a different way of doing it.
yeah.
And so, like, how do you kind of start? I mean, there's so many people who talk about writing a book. So, how do you
Mhm.
kind of start? How do you actually, put pen to paper and get her done?
Yeah, so I've always enjoyed writing. I used to write a lot of stories when I was young. I would be really bored at my grandma's house, and she'd be watching like Guiding Light and The Bold and the Beautiful, like that I was not interested in. And so I would just like write these stories. They weren't about money or anything, they were about just like a sitcom that I was kind of writing. And so
Oh,
it's always been something I've enjoyed doing and like journaling to get my thoughts out on paper. But when my oldest child, when he was 5, so I have 4 kids total, we were shopping at Target and he was like, I need this. It was like a giant remote control this, monster truck thing. And he's like, I need this thing. And I'm like, and it's like $60. And I said, well, that's not in our spending plan today. And he said, well, just buy it on Amazon then. And
Because
that's how
everything
it
from there is
works.
free.
yeah, and so I like he just didn't know that buying something on Amazon was a financial transaction and it required money. It was just like this magical service that brings things to your doorstep, and clearly I should just do it. Um, and so that's when I really was like, oh no, like I have failed in talking to my kids about money. I have failed in teaching them. So I started to look for different resources on, how do we talk to kids about money? Like what can they understand? Like what are we dealing with, and what resources are already out there? And we've always loved reading books as a family every night before bed. So I did find some good books about money, but not very many. And
Mhm.
my initial thought was maybe I can write one, but then I was like, no, that's ridiculous. So I was going to write like a rap or a poem where it was like something catchy
That's
and like so he could remember basic money concepts.
the things
And I
I would do to
use
hear this rap.
yeah,
I
like
mean,
because kids,
like,
they remember songs and they like,
yeah, we all have our songs that our moms, I mean, I do, but yeah, I would love, if you ever want to record that, we'd love to hear it.
Okay, I will let you know. Yeah. So I just kind of researched like what can kids, like a 5-year-old kid, understand about money, and like kind of the basic concepts were, okay, you need money to buy things. You earn money by working, and sometimes you have to wait and save to get what you want. And so those are actually the 3 concepts in the Milton Brings Home the Bacon book, the first book in the children's book series. And that's where I got it from. So I started kind of writing the rap and poem, and then I was like, you know what? I think this is a story. And he adored the dog Milton, and so like Milton was our family dog, and so I thought you having him be a character would just help make it more fun.
So you did write a rap.
Well, no, I was trying to, but then I turned it into the book instead.
Oh, okay. I thought maybe you were holding out on us.
Oh, never, never, Barbara. I will tell you if I have a rep.
That's funny.
um, so yeah,
I,
so that's where it started.
Yeah, I love that you made it with the dog. You knew that's what he loved. And so you turned that, rap into those 3 points and really brought them into the book there. And so did you do the illustrations? I have to know.
I did not, no. So
Okay.
I've actually had two different illustrators in the process. So my first illustrator, she was actually married to a professor in the financial planning school
Oh,
and
cute.
just did some graphic design work. But then she had a kind of a bunch of babies in a row and decided she couldn't do that anymore. And so I now work with a gal out of Topeka that was an art student that a friend of mine knew. So
That's
Oh, fun.
awesome. So, you write your first book. Yay, that's
yay.
so exciting. And so, once you write your first book, do you just start selling it? Do you start sharing it? How did you get it out there? And that's my first question. And then, what prompted you to move on to the second book?
So I would say, in terms of like marketing the book and getting it out there, I just started with reading at my kids' school and daycare, church people that had like mom groups. And I would actually bring Milton the dog with me, which was really
Aw.
fun because he
Mhm.
he was an adorable corgi and he just rode in this wagon and he would like lay there like, "Hey kids, rub my belly." And he would even like pose for pictures, which was really funny because he'd just be like, "Oh hey, cheese,
Oh,
cheese."
that's so funny.
But it was really fun to go, show my kids like what I was working on, and they were super proud to have me come to their classrooms. And then I've since kind of partnered with different banks that they give a copy of the book away when kids open a bank account or a savings account.
Oh, cute.
And then outside of that, more just posting on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So, and now a lot of advisors buy the books too as gifts for their
Yeah.
clients that are having babies or grandbabies, or to have in their waiting rooms if people bring kids in.
I
So,
love it.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
is the second one the Money Savvy Pup makes savings a habit? Is that the second one?
Yes, that's the
Okay.
second one. Yeah, so Milton makes saving a habit is the concepts are, knowing that you don't just spend your money every time you get it, you need to allocate some to giving if that's important to you, set some aside for savings for the short term or emergencies or something in the future that you want to get, and then you can spend the rest. So this was one that we had purchased the savings jars, the give, save, spend jars for our kids.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was talking about it with them, I was like, well, maybe this is the next book, like teaching this concept. So that's where that came from. And then I think, just in terms of when you're thinking about different questions that the kids ask when you read the books, you're like, oh, well, that could be another concept we
Mm-hmm.
talk about in a different book. So,
Wonderful. And
Yeah,
then,
there's so many of these
go
different
ahead.
topics that you could dive into. And so, did you start, with the books, then teaching your kids like how you could make money? I don't, maybe like an allowance thing, and then, waiting to save on those monster trucks. I would love to hear kind of how you implemented some of those things.
yes, so we do allowance and they have it's tied to chores but not tied to chores. It's kind of like a salary in where if they don't do the things they're supposed to do, then they won't get paid, but it was too hard to track based on like when the chore happened. So we do
Yeah.
like a monthly pay now instead because the kids are 11, 9, and then I have twin 6-year-olds. And I do allow them to kind of count their money and we take it with us to the store. And if they want, like, I try to let them just choose, like, because I think making the choice is important and seeing that, like, what's the trade off, right? So we
Mm-hmm.
go
Hmm.
to Target, they want everything, right? They're like, oh, this and this and this and this. And then you're like, okay, well, you have this much money, let's look at the price tag. So you can't get both things, what's more important to you? And so I let them make the decisions for themselves. I let them count out the money at the register and get the change and deal with the taxes and all of that. And it's really fun to see how the different kids react to things. So my oldest, he will typically have me take a picture of the things he's interested in. and he'll think about it, right? Like he
Oh,
doesn't necessarily, he usually doesn't spend his money when we go. He's like, okay, take a picture of it. I'll think about it later. And so then we kind of scroll through it later to see if he's interested in buying that. So he has the most money. My second one, he wants to buy anything and everything like he lays his eyes on. So he really has to weigh the choices and think about the opportunities. And then the twins, they're a boy and a girl, and they're pretty impulsive too still. But they, but I'm excited that they're starting to learn about money so young to kind of
yeah.
figure that out. But I think the bigger part is once they buy the thing, I follow up with them a week later
Mm.
and ask them where it is and like, are you enjoying it? And are you glad you made that purchase? And sometimes they don't even know what they bought, right? Like they forgot about it already. And so then we talk about that. Well, was that worth the, $20 you spent on it? Because now you don't have the money or the thing anymore,
Yeah.
But if they are using it a lot and then really enjoying it, we celebrate that because we want to use our money for things that we enjoy and we value, right? So if they're getting a lot of good use out of it, that's a win. That's something to celebrate.
I
That's
love that.
fantastic.
I need someone, that's when I kind of like look at back at my budget. I am kind of like, what did I buy, and how am I using it? Because that follow up, yeah, at that time, you're like, I need it now. And
Hmm.
so a week later, you're like, did I really need it? And
Yeah.
it's kind of fun to compare the kids just to, you get the same stories. How do you respond differently? You all have
Right.
the same information. How do you go about it differently? It's interesting.
And it sounds like your oldest practices the 24-hour rule, right?
It
So
really does.
not
Yeah.
impulsive, really thinks about it. And this is such an important conversation for today because with Black Friday coming up, everything is, FOMO, fear of missing out, buy it now, you'll never get this price. And I
Hmm.
see a lot of videos that are like, you don't need that extra eyeliner, you don't need a 5 pack of turtlenecks, you don't need, all these things that they're trying to sell you. And you really have to think, is this, the whole overconsumption thing? And like you're teaching your children, trading your hard-earned dollars for something that you think is of a value to you. And is it really? So making a conscious choice around that, which is so, so important. So much of what you're doing is so important. And I love the teaching children about money at a very young age because we're not doing that. I don't care what you say. I've yet to see curriculum in, kindergarten, first grade about money, how money works. And money's changing because, do you give your kids dollars and nickels and quarters and all that? Or do they have like a gift card, which is just a swipe? I mean, that whole psychology is very different.
100%. Yeah. I would say money is almost more difficult to teach now to kids because kids tend to be kind of tangible in how they learn. They want to see it,
Right.
they want to touch it, they want to feel it. And now money for the most part is invisible, right? They watch you buy something at the store with your Apple Pay or your slide a card or Amazon delivers it to the porch,
I was gonna
and it's
say
just,
that's why Amazon's free is because we just see you
it's
press
right.
buttons. There was never cash exchanged.
Yeah, it's just voodoo. And I've had friends who, like their kids are begging for phones. And then if you ask them, well, why do you want a phone so bad? They're like, so I can buy anything I want. Because they think phones are the purchasing thing that like gives you the stuff, right? So I think it's more important now than ever to make money tangible, right? It is invisible.
Hmm.
So how do we make it a real thing that kids understand?
Yeah, I don't know.
It is. It's changing. I mean, I think about as an educator myself, I'm an educator of adults, but when I think about children, you would start with the basics. What's a penny, dime, nickel, quarter, all of that. But I'm wondering, how often do they really see that? How often do they see dollar bills? I mean, when's the last time you saw a $10 bill somewhere? I mean, people
Yeah.
just don't really use cash. So the concepts have to be a little different in how we explain money and kind of the, you know, machinations over the times and how it's really working. But nonetheless, we do need to learn how money works. And I love that you're starting, at the very young age of just reading these simple books because I think you're installing some really great behaviors and concepts.
Thank you. And my hope is that when the parents are reading them with the kids, they feel more empowered to have these conversations with their kids. Because what I've found is that parents don't feel qualified to talk about money with their kids. So they kind of shy away from it because they're like, oh gosh, I made some mistakes. I don't want them learning from me. And then, they're not learning about it in school. So what they do learn, they're just learning by trial and error or observation. And so if we can, make that more of a mindful experience where, oh, well, Milton said to do this, then it gives the parents some ammunition of how to talk to the kids about money.
I
It's
think that's,
perfect.
yeah, so interesting. I mean, and it makes so much sense of not feeling qualified if you're not doing well enough financially, which of course, well enough is also a spectrum, to each their own on that definition. And so to, yeah, to have that to work with is super helpful, but sometimes saying nothing is not helpful, and so we can't just think we're not qualified and not go about a decision. So then I know, yeah, so you can use Milton to educate, but then you made a book for moms. And so besides the reading level being higher, what other new, why is this different? What is this information that, is in that book?
Yeah, so Money Boss Mom, I wanted to make a guidebook for young parents because I feel like there's so many things happening when you're a parent and so many competing priorities that you're dealing with. And things are changing quickly too, right? So if you have an infant, you're dealing with diapers, but that goes away. If you have little kids that are not in kindergarten yet, you have daycare, and that can be more than your mortgage. So how are you figuring that out, on a month to month basis? And that's kind of the key time also when, you're building your career and building your income, and the income's a big piece of what you can do in the future and what you can save. So I just feel like there's so many moving parts. I wanted there to be just like a simple guide of like, okay, here's what you need to know, right? Here's the different categories of financial planning, and here's how to look at it or get a good system in place so you don't have to think about it. And so the book is kind of organized into chapters where you don't have to read it in a linear fashion. Because parents are busy. You might not even be getting enough sleep at night, right? So I wanted it
Yeah.
to be where you like, oh gosh, I really can't figure out, my cash flow systems and like how to budget month to month. So like, okay, read chapter 3, right? Or, oh gosh, I'm a parent and I've heard that having an estate plan is important now. Like, but I don't know what that is or how to do it. So read, chapter 5. So my hope is that it can be just kind of a go-to guide for parents to use to fill in the gaps of what they don't know or what they could do better, and then help get them some good systems in place so they don't have to be worried about money all the time, right? Because when you're worried about money, it consumes you.
Yeah.
You're kind of in fight or flight mode. You're living paycheck to paycheck. You just don't feel in control or feel good, and you can't then pay attention to the things and the people that you love most.
Hmm. Yeah, and you're using tools to help you, and you're kind of conveying those behaviors and tools as you're raising children as well. The strategies that you're learning and maybe working through it with your children as they become more adults as well.
Right.
So this is perfect.
Thanks. Because if the kids are seeing you stressed about money or
Yeah.
talking about money all the time, is it like it's a bad thing? Then that's the message that they're receiving, and then they'll
Yeah.
grow up with some biases that aren't helpful either.
Yeah. So we love that were doing early childhood education. Then you saw this experience from your parents, which led you down the path of personal finance. And so now talk a little bit about the work you do as a, financial professional.
So I'm a financial advisor at CGN Advisors in Manhattan, and I work a lot with individuals and families just on getting organized around their money, so helping them better understand, manage, and improve their financial situations. And that can look different, you know, individual to individual, couple to couple, depending on what's going on in their lives. But we work a lot on understanding kind of, where are they coming from with money? So we want to understand that past and what biases they're bringing to the table, particularly if it's a couple, right? Because people have different
Right.
experiences with money, they have different backgrounds with money. And a lot of times those things are so unspoken, but you're just irritated with each other or furious with each other, and the other person has no idea why. So, like helping
Yeah.
them kind of facilitate conversations together and understand each other's point of view is a piece of what we do. And then helping them figure out, okay, let's manage what we're doing today. How is cash flow month to month? How can we make that better? What are you saving for the future? What does that then project out, and what does that look like? And if that's not what you want it to look like, how do we fix it?
Hmm.
So just helping people kind of be proactive and get a long-term plan in place so that they feel like they're doing the right things, right? Because I feel like, especially with money, people are just like, well, yeah, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Maybe I'm doing the right thing, maybe I'm not, and so there's so much noise out there too that you
Yeah.
hear from social media and just other people at work. And um, I just really enjoy helping people, you know, bring it down to what they need to know, like how does this apply to your personal situation? And then how do we make sure you're in a good place for what you want to do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is that your next book?
I don't know, maybe. Right now I'm working on two more kids books. So the one, well, actually three technically, but I have an activity book for kids coming out hopefully this week. And Milton Counts as Blessings, more of a gratitude focused book,
Mm.
also hopefully coming out this week. And the reason for the gratitude money tie-in is that the research shows that people who have a grateful mindset tend to desire less and
Mhm.
also tend not to spend frivolously, right? So they're able to think more about like, okay, what do I want to spend money on and what do I value? And is it worth buying this thing that popped up on my Instagram feed, or am I going to keep saving for that Disney vacation, right? So that's why the gratitude focus. But and then next year, I have an accountant friend who wants to write a book about taxes for kids, with including his dog Louie the Tax Terrier. So.
Oh, we have like a whole
That one
dog
I'm
theme.
intrigued about. I mean, taxes are a headache for anyone. I mean, I'm like talked to a ton of financial professionals and taxes are still confusing. So I would love to I can't wait to read that one.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, yeah, because I think
I
it's
would,
important because I've had to have those conversations with kids at the store, right? Because if they're buying the transaction themselves, they are like, "Wait, that cost 15.99. Why are you charging me $18?"
Mm-hmm.
So
hmm
like, so I've had that conversation with them, and I think that's important for them to understand. But I also think that taxes. I mean, anything you hear about taxes is usually bad, right? Oh, they're
yeah,
taxing us to death, or oh, taxes, oh, Uncle Sam, blah blah blah. But I think we can frame taxes in a positive light of like, hey, taxes go to things that we all use, right? The parks, the fire department, the bridges that we drive over, and trying to paint that picture for kids so they can see the bigger picture of what that goes to.
For kids and adults.
Maybe, yeah. Yeah, and that's another one that like when the parents are reading it with the kids, it'll probably be helpful for everyone.
Yeah, and you're giving parents, the words to help explain things that can be somewhat complicated, and to make it just easier to understand in minute chunks, if you will.
Right.
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah, I think this was a great conversation. I thank you for coming on today. And so, where can people find these books? And then I think you have a discount as well that you wanted to share, as these are amazing gifts for new parents or new babies or kids for the holidays.
Yeah, so the books are available on my websites, moneybossmom.com and miltonthemoneysavvypup.com. And I actually have a coupon code for 10% off from now until December 24th for giving. MBM, so like Money Boss Mom 10 is the code. And they're also available on Amazon, so you can buy them that way too. But if you buy them through my website, I will autograph them for you.
Oh, that's
Ooh,
fantastic. Yeah. Wonderful.
awesome.
I'm so glad that we met at that conference, Jamie, because, financial literacy is huge here at Purse Strings. That's what we're all about, giving women the tools and resources and access to vetted financial professionals who focus on serving women so that they have everything they need in a go-to location. These gifts are powerful, I think, for people to grab and to give and start teaching our children about money in a world where money can be very, very difficult and convoluted to understand as it changes. So, thank you, Jamie, for coming on today. Thank you for all of your work in these books. They're going to make a huge rippling effect out there for so many, and we appreciate the work that you do.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your kind words and for having me on today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, all of Jamie's contact information, of course, will be in the show notes as well as link to her books and that 10% off code as well. So be sure to grab these before the holidays. And we'd love to hear how they go over with the kids. Until then, we'll talk to everyone soon. Be financially fearless. Sweet.